Today's goal for the video, don't hit the microphone. Don't do it. What's going on there, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to continue to talk about some of the upcoming Lord of the Rings games that are getting remastered by Aspyr, because they're games that are just going to start popping up out of nowhere, and obviously the community has their mind set on some of the specific games. Some people really want to see Return of the King remastered. Oddly enough, I've been seeing a lot of hope and love for Conquest to be remastered, which is kind of shocking because that game was always kind of reviewed mid, but I guess it's turned into a bit of a cult classic here. So maybe we'll see Conquest make a return here on the game front. But the game that I actually really want to talk about is the one that really comes down to be the most likely game that is going to come out for the remastering, purely just from a licensing, and that is The Lord of the Rings Aragorn's Quest. Now, I know a lot of people will look at that and probably not even know what this game is. Lord of the Rings Aragorn's Quest came out way back, I don't even remember what the exact year was, but it came out during the Wii and PS3 era, and it actually came out for those consoles because the goal of the game was really just to create a Lord of the Rings game aimed for children that would entice them through the motion controls. So you had the ability to swing the Wii remote or your nunchuck or whatever PlayStation motion devices were around in the PS3 era to be able to swing your weapons and swing your shield and use your bow and arrow and pretty much try and immerse you as much as possible into Aragorn's story. The majority of the game is pretty simple. It is a retelling of the Lord of the Rings from Aragorn's point of view primarily, as he is the main playable character, but it gives kind of a more fun children-based narration because the whole premise of the game is Samwise Gamgee sitting around a campfire with his family, reading a book, reading from the Red Book, Aragorn's point of view throughout the rest of the Lord of the Rings. So it kind of just gives this really fun childlike narration to it. I do even just have a ton of fond memories, honestly, playing this game as a kid. Review-wise, it was not received the greatest, which is where I think some people might not expect to see this one be remastered. But there is a main reason as to why it could be, and it really comes down to licensing. A lot of the reasons why we thought that we weren't going to be getting any remastering of most Lord of the Rings games, especially the ones from the EA era, was because of the licensing. So Return of the King, Two Towers, Conquest, all of those games, they were put under a license by EA and New Line Cinema, which later that license then moved on to Warner Brothers. However, EA still has all publishing rights for those games, and so it's not just a matter of how quickly they're going to be able to get the remasters done, specifically as talking about Aspyr in this regard, but they still have an entire license battle that they're going to have to fight before we're going to really be able to get that ability. Now, this battle could have already been fought and it could have already been won. I don't know. I can't say anything for sure on what is going to be the state of those remasters. I think it's something that could honestly go either way. I think there's a lot of potential that we could be seeing these remasters coming out within the next year. I think there also could be a potential that it could be a long period of time. Aspyr just said that they plan on remastering a lot of the classic games. They haven't told us exactly which ones that are going to be coming out yet. And Aragorn's Quest doesn't have that licensing battle. They don't have to worry about fighting any battles to license the game because the game was already published under Warner Brothers. Now, some people might look and think, well, why don't they do a remaster of Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War? And honestly, those games don't need it. They came out, yes, in 2014, 2017, somewhere around there, but they're still really good. They still hold up graphically really well to this day. And so I really just don't think that that's going to be the best option for a remaster. And a lot of people can still acquire them and get them on Steam for relatively affordable pricing. Whereas games like Aragorn's Quest and the older EA games, you can't get them on Steam at all. You can't get them on your consoles. You have to either do an emulator or you will have to spend a lot of money on consoles that just aren't being produced anymore. And so that's where I, again, don't expect a Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War. Going back to Aragorn's Quest, though, I think this game also just does pave the way for a great remaster because a lot of The gameplay elements are kind of fun and little cute. It really is a game that was geared towards children, which is great. And I think that that's part of the reason why it bodes well for a remaster, because War in the North gave us a darker, more harsher aesthetic for Middle Earth, whereas Aragorn's Quest kind of brings us back to the happy-go-lucky side of the Shire and just being excited to be in the Shire, as well as seeing kind of that children's book style that Tolkien did right when he originally wrote The Hobbit. You kind of get that new version of that through Aragorn's Quest. Now, there is one thing that does make Aragorn's Quest a little bit more difficult to remaster, and that is the motion controls. Since not every modern console, has motion controls, it can be really difficult to get that down. I know that there was some like button inputs that you could do on PS3 to be able to get those motion controls, but again, it wasn't something that was the easiest thing to be able to just do. You couldn't just like, it was kind of janky to like hit triangle to swing up, square to stab, or however they had it all figured out. It was a real kind of awkward process to be playing that way. And so that could actually bode for a pretty decent challenge for Aspire to be able to do this remaster, especially since a lot of the avenues for Aragorn's Quest is based around the motion control. Like each different style of attack that you did, whether it was an upward swing, a downward swing, a stab, all of those kinds of things, did actually give different benefits. And so it wasn't just something where you could just kind of like, no, well, I mean, you could just swing the Wii Remote randomly and you could kind of get through most of your fights okay. But if you really wanted to be optimal, then you actually had specific attacks that you would want to use to make sure that you could defeat enemies the best way possible. It really ended up being a little bit more in-depth of a combat system once you really kind of figured out how it all worked, which is something that's kind of surprising for a children's game. But either way, I think Aragorn's Quest could be remastered. I also would just kind of be surprised if it wasn't remastered just because of these certain things. But we'll see. There's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot to be excited about when it comes to these remasters. And I'm just personally excited to see more Lord of the Rings games coming back. I think this is a great new era for Lord of the Rings games, and we have a great opportunity to be able to go through and just re-enjoy Tolkien's world from fresh perspectives again. And for people who didn't grow up playing the golden era of Lord of the Rings, they can do so again. So that's pretty much it for this video. As always, I do want to give a huge shout out to all of my Ko-Fi supporters. You guys are the ones that help to make this channel possible. If you would like to support on Ko-Fi, you can do so down in the description below. There will be a link there. And please do, guys, make sure you like and subscribe. We're getting close to YouTube partner. We just crossed the 750 subscriber mark, so thank you guys so much for that. And with that, you are loved, you are valued, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we will see you right back here in the next one. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.